Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. In this episode, I welcome back a good friend, David Lui, CEO and President of Korite. Since 1979, Korite has been the home of superior Ammolite, inspiring the world with the rarity and beauty in Canada's gemstone. Since 2020, David has been leading the company through the COVID era, through going into protection, and now coming out on the other side with a modern global footprint, combining strong retail partners and a direct-to-consumer platform.
It's been a wild year, Michael. not just the pandemic. I joined the company at a very interesting time when the pandemic actually hit. But a few months later, as a board, we decided to put the company and file under CCAA. It was just a bit of the sign of the times. So the year has been interesting. Some of my friends joked that it was like getting an MBA. I said, well, I don't want to do an MBA twice, but it was almost earning a PhD, frankly.
Yeah. It's an intense time, isn't it?
Yes. But CCAA was a very interesting process.
All right, now let's listen in. David, welcome back to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me back. What an interesting year we just had. I mean, the last time we spoke was at the Stores Conference, and now we had the pleasure of speaking from home.
Yeah, that's right. And we skipped a store, so to speak, in 2020, Retail Council of Canada's Store Conference. We had a nice setup there. I had the Purelator podcasting studio and got to see everyone and got to see you face to face. And boy, what a year of change for you, and in the year of change for all of us. But for you, it's been new, different time, different galaxy, different role. Very excited to kind of catch up and hear all about it and share with the listeners all the insights you have and the background. Why don't we just jump right in for those who may have missed the first time you and I chatted back in 2019. Give us a sense of your personal professional journey and your role now at Korite.
Yeah, no, thanks, Michael. So, I was born and raised in a merchant family in Vancouver. Spent the last 30 years particularly focused in retail, through startups to leading and building multi-billion-dollar brands. I had the opportunity to gain great experience spanning from between Canada, US, Europe, Asia. Well, I built a career in operations, merchandising, and most recently focused on marketing, digital, and e-commerce. And over this time, I've had the opportunity to work with some very unique brands from around the world, selling apparel, furniture, housewares, got involved with food, etc., to now a semi-precious gemstone, which is very interesting. You mentioned, my new role. It's not really a new role, somewhat, but I'm currently the CEO and President of Korite. I'm also a shareholder of the company. And we'd love the opportunity to share with the listeners about everything about Korite.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about it because I actually, as it happens, know the business. It's funny, when you and I were talking, it was a coincidence. I knew the business because we were a retailer of the product at the shopping channel. So, but for those who may not know, Canada's gemstone, tell us all about it.
Yeah, Korite is a brand internationally recognized as the leading producer of the ultra-rare Ammolite gemstone and ammonite fossils. It's been around for 40 years. And I do have to explain the difference between the ammonite and the Ammolite.
Yeah.
If you can follow me, the ammonite is the fossil from shell squid-like creatures that lived over 70 million years ago in our waters. Mm-hmm. And the Ammolite is the gemstone from the ammonites. It's just part of the mining process when we discover the ammonites, where there will be chips and loose pieces that are then classified as gemstone quality. We would then turn those into gemstones.
And my understanding is that's the one of the most recent declarations of a genuine gemstone, and it's exclusively in Alberta, found in Alberta?
Yeah, Ammolite, the gemstone, was officially designated as a naturally occurring precious gemstone by the World Jewelry Confederation in 1981. So it's in fact the youngest gemstone that was declared. Korite has more than 90% of the world's market of Ammolite, mined here in southern Alberta, in Lethbridge in particular. And what's different is, while ammonite fossils are found on every continent in the world, but only in southern Alberta are they found with the distinctly bright, beautiful, iridescent colors that make it so rare and precious.
So tell us a bit about how you go to market as a jeweler, and then we'll talk a little bit about the interesting year that you've had. But do you go through retail, and what kind of retail? Do you sell direct? Give me a sense of that.
Yeah, the journey with Korite has been very exciting. I think of it as more of a 40-year-old startup. The business pre-COVID was very focused on B2B, and now we are shifting that quickly to a more direct-to-consumer focus. I call it a direct-to-consumer focus because, our B2B customers are still very important to us, and we still support them. But it's very important that we know who our consumers are, the end consumer. So, we believe if we know them, we can produce the right product for them. And, how we would do that is really from our Korite.com channel. There's a lot of work to be done, trust me. But we are gaining great momentum as this channel has grown substantially over the last quarter. And we've poured a lot of focus on, building marketing, telling our story, and really what I just explained in terms of difference between ammonite and Ammolite, helping, consumers understand the rarity. And you mentioned, Alberta is known for dinosaurs. Well, the Ammonite, being over 70 million years ago, in the Cretaceous period, was swimming amongst, the big beasts, the big dinosaurs. So
crazy to think of it.
Yeah. So there's a lot to be done, but we are more shifting to more a direct-to-consumer approach.
And it was the case, and I mentioned this earlier on, that as a retailer, you had retailers like the Shopping Channel, now today's Shopping Choice, and you also did sales in cruise lines and all kinds of different places. So you did have points of presence, and we should also say that when we talk about a gemstone, you're putting them in watches and earrings and pendants. How you express the product is really interesting. I guess that's what you also hope to learn from these direct relationships is what kind of innovation and style and fashion that the consumers will be looking for. Yeah.
Yep, correctly. The Shopping Choice, our cruise ship partners, our tourism partners, we have different verticals. We have our gemstone, which we sell gemstones to, prominent designers around the world. We also have a jewelry collection where, we are able to take our jewelry collection to help us express who Korite is in the consumer's mind. And then it's distributed to we have about over 140 retail customers that carry our product. We also have our cruise ship partners, whether it's in the Caribbean or Alaska, and we're looking for, when things do come back, we're looking for opportunities to be on cruise ships in the Asian waters. So it's multifaceted. Plus, we also have, with our ammonite fossils, they are precious art collectible items. And we ship and sell throughout the world. Like currently, you could find our Korite brand with our ammonite fossils and jewelry in over 28 countries.
It's a great background, and my mother loves the product, by the way. So just for the listeners out there, she's got a watch and a pendant, and it's a really beautiful, natural product. No two watches are the same, right? Everything's different.
Yes, it's all one of a kind.
It's really spectacular. All right. So you've been through an interesting year. Take us through your past year at Korite. You mentioned the COVID crisis. I don't think it was kind to many. And in particular, when you mentioned cruise lines, we know that they were parked and still remain parked. So I'm sure it put the business under some pressure. So tell me about the last year and what you've learned and the journey you've been on, specifically around Korite, the business itself.
It's been a wild year, Michael. Not just the pandemic. I joined the company at a very interesting time when the pandemic actually hit. But a few months later, as a board, we decided to put the company and file under CCAA. it was just a bit of the sign of the times. So the year has been interesting. Some of my friends joked that it was like getting an MBA. I said, well, I don't want to do an MBA twice, but it was almost earning a PhD, frankly.
Yeah. It's an intense time, isn't it?
Yes. But CCAA was a very interesting process. I do have to say a few words about that. In terms of how we navigated through it, was we had to keep the end goal in mind, which was, hard at times. But what was it? Was saving the company, working with our partners, and keeping as many people employed as possible. We have a lot of long-term serving team members with over 20 plus years of service.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And, they've been with the company, and we wanted to keep them employed. One could easily get bogged down with the administration of the filing, but it was all about keeping things transparent across all stakeholder groups, investors, banks, landlords, suppliers, customers, and ultimately our employees. So constant communication was key to us, and keeping everyone abreast of the process. And trust me, it was a process, not an easy process.
Yeah, I've been through a similar process in my past, and it's as you say, it's like the PhD that you never got. Right?
No, exactly. But the filing allowed. I always look at the positive side of things, and I think the outcome was very positive. But allowed the company to restructure our finances, and ultimately allowed us to do a deeper dive into our operations and improve upon it. It was not a reflection of the lack of love for Ammolite. In fact, it was the complete opposite. We had many loyal consumers voiced and showed their support for the company during this time.
Let's talk a little bit about you in terms of your transition from, you mentioned at the beginning, gave us a sense, and I knew you particularly when you were at Canadian Tire and divisions there. And what attracted you to this opportunity from a development perspective? Obviously, the opportunity to be a CEO, but you're a miner now. It's a very specific type of opportunity. What skills and perspectives did you acquire, or did you benefit from in this transition? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was certainly a different transition with the pandemic hitting at the same time. But I look at really throughout my career, had the opportunity to hold a variety of different roles as a CEO or president or a VP or a director, and I learned so much along the way. But with that said, though, I don't feel like I left retail behind. At Korite, we are actually we're not a miner. Mining is an element in our vertical supply chain, but we are essentially a consumer brand. And the opportunities within our vertical integration is that we are able to deliver the experience of Ammolite in so many ways. Much like what I referenced earlier, be it art collection to gemstones to jewelry pieces, we are a consumer brand. I always loved in my career building brands, and this was a once in a lifetime opportunity to build something that is essentially a part of who Canada is, right? And is essentially Canada's gemstone, only found here in southern Alberta, and particularly in the city of Lethbridge. But I still live in retail, and our rebuild for Korite is a direct-to-consumer focus, and it's so important. And I believe my skills and knowledge of retail greatly benefits the brand.
Well, let's talk about that. It's a good segue into you've touched on it a couple of times in terms of the DTC model and the mixed model and the benefits there. Tell me about your plans for that. I mean, I have to think that the markets you mentioned, China. I've got to think that that's a target or an opportunity to grow for you in some way, shape, or form. And how do you think about that market, and how do you think about growing as a DTC brand and developing those new that new muscle memory really as an organization?
Oh yeah, it's transformational, frankly. I mentioned earlier, we have team members been here 20 plus years, and there's change, right? There's it's looking at the business in a very different lens. I gotta give credit to a lot of the industries that we have been. I mean, they are challenged right now, and of course, we feel the pinch, and we feel their pinch. And, as a team, we're working hard to reinvent our business and look at new ways to expand our markets. So I call it, we will always support our core, which is our cruise lines, the shopping choice, etc. But, we're looking to expand for more. And we will be ready when they are back, and we are with them when they're back. But at Korite, we are looking at our online presence and definitely looking beyond Canada. We are working very closely with a customer of ours that sells into China through Taobao, which is part of the Alibaba group, with a tremendous amount of success. Our partner, they live stream 16 hours per day in China.
What?
Per day, 16 hours per day in China. And live broadcasting from our showroom here in Calgary and showrooms in China. And it's really been awesome. And as you know, that's an emerging trend in North America. So, we're exploring avenues where we can bring live streaming, how we would do that here in North America. That's been very exciting for us as we continue to study and evaluate the possibilities. And then our Ammonite fossils, which we can't travel now to all the key trade shows around the world. We're bringing that, I'm almost somewhat saying, bringing Ammonite and technology together. And we're just reinventing a way of how to showcase our Ammonite pieces to buyers around the world.
It's a funny thing, and I do some work with the Irish government, and we used to have an event in Dublin around this time of the year where we'd bring people together, merchants from Canada, to showcase Irish goods. And now we're trying to, as you described, pivot to say, okay, how do we expose more people? And in some ways it's more beneficial, right? Because it's instead of a trip around the world to go the other side of the pond to go see the product, we're doing these virtual things. So I think there's, here's a question for you. Do you think even when, in the post-COVID, post-vaccine era, I feel that kind of virtual, whether it's virtual selling, as you described, or that virtual trade show, it still has a good, I think it's been accelerated. I think it might, I'm not sure if it's going to replace the big shows, but I think it's certainly going to help you expand your market, yeah?
Oh, definitely. I mean, when we look back at some of the, just some of the sales trends of when we are in particular trade shows, it was very important to be face to face with our customers. Yeah. But a lot of the sales activities happen afterwards, or before or afterwards. And now that everyone, basically is adopting to working from home and not traveling, we're finding our interactions with our partners in other parts of the world very effective through video and sending out samples if we have to. As you can imagine, our stone and ammonites are very colorful, and they're very particular, and it speaks to you personally. And how do you display that digitally? That's what we're trying to do, and it seems to be working. But you're right. I mean, a bit of new norm will kick in for sure.
We'll be back in a minute. If you like this interview, hit subscribe and catch up on the Voice of Retail episodes you might have missed, like my exclusive interview with Charlie Cole, the CEO of FTD. And you'll get new ones delivered directly to you. More with David Lui after the break. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the need for businesses to undergo a digital transformation. Through the Toronto's Regional Board of Trade's Recovery Activation Program, otherwise known as a RAP, you can now immerse yourself in online sessions, workshops, and one-on-one mentorships with industry experts to learn how your businesses can get ahead through digital solutions. Whether your business is having difficulty connecting with customers or struggling to manage increasing demand, RAP offers practical support and advice at no cost, helping your business build back stronger and smarter. Wondering how you can get started? Well, your business is a RAP journey begins with Digital Needs Assessment, or a DNA. The DNA takes less than 30 minutes to complete and offers an assessment of your business's current digital maturity, benchmarked against companies of similar size from related sectors from around the country. Based on your results, RAP's team of industry experts will contact you to discuss which programs will be most useful in helping you take the next step in your digital transformation. From helping you build your personalized digital transformation blueprint to tailored and outcome-driven modules based on cybersecurity and digital marketing tools, there's a WRAP program to support you and your business. In under a year, WRAP will have analyzed more than 1,000 Ontario businesses, hosted more than 4,000 virtual event attendees, and maintained 100% overall participation satisfaction. Remember, there's no cost to participate. So to ensure your business is ready to capitalize on those exciting opportunities for digital growth, take your digital needs assessment today at wrap.bot.com. That's wrap.bot.com. Well, we've touched on the new way of buying as a merchant. Let's talk about the new way of buying as consumers. What, as you think deeply about this and your brand and just general what you've been observing with your vast experience, great experience in retail, what do you think the lasting implications of the COVID era are going to be in terms of consumer behavior? We've seen a massive acceleration of e-commerce, for example. I guess accelerating e-commerce is easy when there's no stores to go to, but when things go back to normal, what's your expectation? What are your kind of big bets in terms of how consumers are going to behave? Are they going to, cherish the fact they can travel now, and then they'll be looking for experiences, and we'll see a rebound in that? How are you thinking about forecasting and thinking about consumer demand?
There'll be a pent-up demand, like we feel with the cruise lines and et cetera. You see overbookings, et cetera. I think we're going to go through a period of time where there's pent-up demand and then a calming effect. As retailers, as brand leaders, the relationship that we're building during this pandemic is just going to be, well, first of all, it's so important for us to build that one-to-one relationship, because we need to be top of mind with them after the pandemic passes. And this is such a great opportunity to build that relationship. Therefore, I believe that, everyone's gone to online, but my advice to other brands would be, don't focus on the transactional side of it. Tell your why, tell your story, build that relationship that when the pandemic actually passes, that then you continue to be top of mind and top of mind of consideration. Now, experiences is definitely, values and experience is going to be, I believe, top of mind for consumers as we move forward.
No, it's very savvy advice, because in other words, if I can, I've heard it from other great leaders to say, don't miss this opportunity, even though you can't transact, to build relationships is exactly what you're describing. Raise the awareness of Ammolite, tell the great stories, and be present. And then when people are ready to shop again, and able, you're there for them. And as you say, when they think of great additions to their lives from whether it's jewelry or whatever it is, they think of your brand in the top. Very, very smart. So, it's kind of a funny question, because there's been so much next in your life and in Korite and Ammolite for the past 12 months. What's next? You've talked about a focus, certainly building out with your background and skills, the e-commerce DTC. Is that fairly succinctly where you're going to be putting your focus, going global, going direct, building that relationship? Is that a good kind of summary of how you're thinking about the next 36 months or whatever that time period looks like?
90% of our customers or consumers reside outside of Canada. So that's number one. Was
90%. 90%. Wow.
90% of customers reside outside of Canada, and we are essentially Canada's or Alberta's gemstone.
Yeah.
So number one thing is we need to let Canadians know about us. So in our backyard, and that's the story that we are going to tell. Yeah. Number two, we are actively speaking, and it's interesting when you emerge from CCAA, and by the way, we emerged. We're not in protection today. Yep. Which is another great announcement.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. But after we emerged, we have many partners from around the world approached us. So we are actively speaking to interested parties in India, other parts of Asia, and even into Pakistan. So that would be a growth vehicle for Korite, and also enhancing and building the relationship that we have with China. Because one of the uniqueness of our stone, let's say, is revered by feng shui masters as the stone of the millennium, of positivity, optimism, energy. And in India, and that part of the world is chakra. And with the indigenous community here in the First Nations, it's called buffalo stone. So there is this metaphysical healing property that our stone has that gives people comfort. And actually what we find is during these very stressful times is that our customers and consumers that have in their possession of Ammolite actually says that it has helped them calm themselves. As you know, the big topic today and big focus is mental health.
Yeah.
And many of them, from a testimonial perspective, says this has helped them overcome challenges. Very interesting.
Yeah, well, listen, whatever it takes, I think it's well said. If that brings you peace and calm and all those great things, what a great addition it can be to your life, and why not take advantage of that? You've got Brand Canada behind you. I think there's an authenticity in terms of a Canadian genuine product. I know genuineness and that goes over very well in many markets, right? That it's not a knockoff, it's genuine. You've got all that behind you. So listen, I'm very optimistic. I always love the product. I'm a little biased because I just think it's a wonderful product, and I'm a proud Canadian. So it's great to hear, and it's great to see you there and
Thank you.
Korite back on its feet and through the challenges and getting ready for the future. So listen, thanks so much for joining us on the Voice of Retail podcast. It was great to catch up. I look forward to one day doing it in person and keeping a close eye on the next developments, both product and otherwise, for Korite.
Thank you, Michael. No, it's been awesome as always to speak with you.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode of The Voice of Retail. Be sure and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on the latest episodes, industry news, and insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating and review, as it really helps us grow so that we continue to get amazing guests onto the show. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of LeBlanc Company Inc. And if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn. Visit my website at meleblanc.co. Until next time, stay safe and have a great week.